It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of April 2nd, 1999. We have 3 movies to look at today, so let's just go ahead and jump on into it. And the first movie that we have here was not only the biggest new release of the weekend, but one could argue it was one of the most influential movies, the last big influential movie of the 1990s, which would carry over into the 2000s. I'm, of course, talking about the Wachowski brothers, The Matrix. Okay, I guess technically back then they were the Wachowski brothers, but now it's the Wachowskis because one of them had a sex change operation. And bottom line, it's the Wachowskis. So, The Matrix, if you haven't heard about it, it's basically, what is The Matrix, you're probably asking yourself. It depicts a dystopian future in which humanity is unknowingly trapped inside a simulated reality that intelligent machines have created to distract humans while using their bodies as an energy source. You have a computer programmer played by Keanu Reeves using the hacker alias Neo, uncovering the truth, and he joins a rebellion against the machines along with other people who have been freed from The Matrix. And The Matrix is the film that is most known as an example of the cyberpunk subgenre of science fiction, and it had a lot of action sequences influenced by anime and martial arts films. Fight choreographers and kung fu techniques were used by Hong Kong action cinema people. The film popularized terms such as the red pill, introduced the visual effect known as bullet time. It was a film that was revolutionary for a number of different reasons, and people took to it right away. Many people claim it's one of the greatest science fiction films of all time. Me personally, I thought it was alright. Would I say it's one of the greatest science fiction films of all time? Not really, because the biggest overall flaw of the movie is the story, and that it doesn't really, and that it's sometimes gets a little bit too pretentious for its own good. It feels like they're trying to be so much more deeper and so much more a lot more philosophication in this than most people would expect from it. But luckily here, I will say this, it's not as bad as what would happen with the rest of the Matrix films after this, because they really upped the ante on that front in the next couple of movies here. And other than that, though, there is a lot to admire about the film. The cinematography is really cool. The entertainment is definitely entertaining. The action sequences are top-notch. The visual effects are very good. You have really good performances all around from Keanu Reeves, Lawrence Fishburne, Carrie-Anne Moss, Hugo Weaving as Mr. Anderson, Joe Pantoliano. It's funny because Will Smith actually turned down this movie to do Wild Wild West, and you can bet he probably regretted that decision for many, many years after it came out. And it was an influential movie for the time. It launched the Wachowskis into the well-known lexicon. It made them the stars the directors that they are in today, and it still has a lot of moments in there that I still do like. The biggest flaw overall is in the story. It does take itself a little bit too seriously at times, and it just doesn't have that spark that it really needs to make it. It's one of those great sci-fi films, at least in my opinion. It works mostly because of the visuals and the acting and the way the film is shot. The way action sequences are great. I mean, it's everything that I mentioned before. That's what I really took away from the original Matrix film. I mean, the other ones have little brief flashes of promise to them, but this is definitely the best one of the Matrix movies, easily, hands down. I mean, this is just the one that just has so much more enjoyable elements to it. The sequels, not so much, but we will eventually get to the sequels as we continue on through this trek that we're on, going through all the different years. But as far as this film goes, I liked it. I don't think it's one of the greatest science fiction films of all time, but I understand its place in the history of cinema. I mean, it introduced things that a lot of action movies that would come after this would later use to great effect in other movies, far superior films. But this film definitely stands up on a number of levels. It's one of those films that kind of defines 1999 film as a whole. So that's The Matrix. So let's go ahead and move on to another surprisingly influential film from the late 90s that you may not think about it at first, but then when you really delve into this, you'll see what I mean. This is 10 Things I Hate About You. So this is a film that really, when it came out, it really kind of took everybody by surprise. It actually did pretty well with critics, and actually did well box office-wise. And it has since gone on to have this massive cult following, and is considered a classic in the teen film genre. I mean, it's had such a legacy to it. They've actually made a TV series based off of this. I mean, this is a film that does not seem like on paper it has that big of a legacy to it, but over time, it has become one of those influential teen films of the late 90s. And once you actually see it, you can kind of see why. You have a story here that's basically a modernized retelling of William Shakespeare's The Taming of the Shrew, retold in a late 1990s high school setting. You have this new student named Cameron, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who is smitten with Bianca, played by Larissa Oleynik, who you may recognize as Alex Mack from the sequel World of Alex Mack. And in order to get around her father's strict rules on dating, the father being played hilariously by Larry Miller, he attempts to get bad boy Patrick, played by the late Heath Ledger, to date Bianca's antisocial sister, played by Julia Stiles. The film is named after a poem Kat wrote about her romance with Patrick, and it's directed by Gil Junger. Gil Junger has mostly been known as a primary TV director. This is actually his first movie he directed as a feature film. He'd later go on to direct stuff like Black Knight. He did a couple of other, mostly just DVD movies, direct-to-video films, movies for ABC, Family, and just a good cast overall here. I mean, I mentioned Julia Stiles, Heath Ledger, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Larissa Oleynik, Larry Miller, David Krumholtz you see in there. You see Gabrielle Union, you see Daryl Mitchell, Allison Janney. A really strong cast in here. And it's a film that really has grown over time. I mean, my favorite thing about the movie is Larry Miller. I think this is the strongest comedic performance you can get from Larry Miller, because he has a lot of good funny moments in the film, and you can see why they brought him back for the TV series. But yeah, as far as the film itself goes, I'm actually really surprised at how long this had a lasting legacy, more than I would have ever thought it did. I mean, nobody really ever talks about this one, but when you see this movie being played on TV so many times, Freeform I think plays it once every couple of weeks on there, and that's really something for a film like this that's been around for almost 25 years and doesn't really get the same kind of attention as something like Clueless does, or some of these other great high school comedies that we've had over the last 4 decades. But this one's definitely up there, and it's definitely worth a watch. It's one of those ones that I saw it and I was kind of like, you know what? This actually does work a lot better than I think it has any right to. I think it works because it has all these great actors involved here very early on in their careers, and I think the result speaks for itself. It's a well-made film. I definitely say check it out if you haven't seen it already. That's 10 Things I Hate About You. So let's go ahead and move on to the last movie here, and that is Steve Martin and Goldie Hawn in the remake of The Out-of-Towners. So this is a remake of a 1970 Neil Simon comedy which starred Jack Lemmon and Sandy Dennis, and this, of course, has Steve Martin and Goldie Hawn in it. Frank Oz directed the film, and the potential clearly is there, but kind of like with House Sitter, there is a lot of problems to it that really, like, House Sitter at least was trying. This is not. I mean, how do you get two of the funniest comedic personalities ever in Steve Martin and Goldie Hawn, and they fail to make a good comedy not once but twice? Like House Sitter, like I said, had so much potential with these two as the leads. It just never really lived up to it because it's a one-note premise. And here, it's kind of more the same, except it's even worse because House Sitter had some funny moments here and there. This does not. The jokes are not funny. They really do not have any clever or funny things to work with, Goldie Hawn and Steve Martin, and it really feels like you're watching a bad CBS TV series version of The Out-of-Towners. I'm not talking about like when the movie was coming out or anything. This would be something that someone will look at 50 years down the road and think, let's make a TV series out of it because we can get these two actors in here. That's really what it feels like here, and I said Frank Oz directed this. I lied about that. That's actually not the case here, but this doesn't feel like it. But bottom line, it does not feel like an actual movie, and that's pretty bad considering this is the same guy that wrote Miss Congeniality and directed by the director of George of the Jungle, two really funny comedies, and this is the best that they could come up with. I mean, it says a lot when the best thing you could say about the movie is not that Steve Martin and Goldie Hawn are funny, but John Cleese is really giving it his all here to be the funniest thing in the movie. He really is the best part of the movie. All of his stuff in this movie is top-notch hilarious. I mean, it's not really given a whole lot to do with the script, but he's putting his all into it, and it shows on screen. But other than that, this is just a lousy remake of the original 1970s film, which is an okay movie. It's nothing too crazy. It's nothing too spectacular, but it works better than this movie does, and it doesn't have those bad sitcom jokes. It doesn't waste the talented cast, the lackluster humor like this film does. It's just a mess on so many levels. They only remade it because of the name. It's a mess of a film. Avoid this one like the plague. The Out-of-Towners, 1999. Go watch the original. It's much better. And so on that note, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. The next time we meet, we'll look at Drew Barrymore in Never Been Kissed. We'll also look at Doug Liman's Go. We'll also see Jackie Chan plus Jackie Chan in Twin Dragons. And also Foolish. So 4 films to look at next time. We'll delve into those on the next episode. But until then, thank you very much for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page. Check out the previous episode. And also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So with that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time. And until then, as always, take care.